You want a war? You're gonna get one.
Now get the guns, the drugs, to my generation, I'll take the fall. The stakes, across the nation, and it's a sex, the gods, the fakes, the fraud, they're messing with me. Come on, come on, come on, let's get it out. Move to the music, play that fucking music. Live through my music, yeah.
Hey yo, welcome back to Reliving the War and welcome to the 20th of September 1999. Raw's live from Houston, Texas, while Nitro's live from Cincinnati, Ohio. WWF Unforgiven takes place this Sunday and we have got ourselves a new WWF champion. Vince McMahon defeated Triple H on SmackDown and you'll need to watch the last episode of Reliving the War SmackDown to see what happened. As a quick heads up, the next episode of SmackDown will get covered on the channel and that video goes live on Sunday. On Tuesday, the Unforgiven pay-per-view is going to get reviewed, so it's another full week of Reliving the War uploads on the channel. I hear you guys too, all 6 of you want more WCW Thunder coverage, so I will shift focus on the WCW's Thursday night show very soon. It's just that so much happened on the first few weeks of SmackDown that I had to cover those shows. We have got a whole jam-up family this week on Reliving the War. Yes, this series brings families together. After a rough few years, John took his family to WrestleMania 40 and they had a blast. Even the pets at home wore their Wrestling Bio shirts, which is pretty awesome. John bought a lot of his merch during the Owen Hart donation drive, so thank you very much, man. The donations to the Owen Hart Foundation are probably the best thing that's going to come out of this series. I hope you, your family, and your little pets enjoy Reliving the War this week, John. Let's get started and see what happened in our number 1 of Monday Nitro. The commentators are decked out in WCW Mayhem shirts and there's fans promoting the game in the front row. Mayhem releases in 3 days, guys, so make sure you buy it. I'm sure it's going to sell out. Sting's going to defend his World Championship against Hulk Hogan at Halloween Havoc 99, but by that time we'll be in full Vince Russo mode and the match would turn out to be quite controversial. We begin the in-ring action with a tag team match, Juventud Guerrera and Psychosis versus Rey Mysterio and Kidman, and we have got a hot crowd in Cincinnati tonight as Kidman and Psychosis go to work. It was going well for young Billy until that no-good Juventud attacked from the apron, allowing Psychosis to pull off a sit-out gourd-buster. Guerrera then pulled off a diving Hurricane Rana and the crowd absolutely hate Hoovy tonight. Either that or they just love Billy Kidman. Ray comes in with a springboard seated senton followed by a lion salt, though he takes a great looking top rope leg drop while being held up by Psychosis. So in comes Billy Boy with a diving crossbody. Loads of great fast action here in the Nitro opener. Mysterio takes Hoovy out with an Asai moonsault, leaving Kidman all alone in the ring to finish the match. Unfortunately though, Hoovy gets up before Mysterio and he's able to push Kidman off the top rope when Billy goes for the shooting star press. Surprisingly, Hoovy and Psychosis win the match clean as a whistle, but after the bell, Conan and Eddie Guerrero come out to give the winners a hard time. They all end up in the ring where Kidman tries to remove Psychosis' mask, and this leads to Chavo Guerrero coming down to stop Billy. Psychosis wanted to say something after the beatdown, but Chavo speaks for him. He challenges Kidman to a hair versus mask match, and it looks like Psychosis didn't actually want to have this match, but anyway, it is made official. Another luchador could lose their mask next week on Nitro. Complete Ted Brian Knobbs then came out for a match with Goldberg. Jimmy Hart wanted this match because Goldberg blindsided Jerry Flynn last week, and Knobbs says he's going to kick Goldberg's stinking ass before the security guards knock on Billy Boy's door. Goldberg went right to work as soon as he got in the ring, but he took 2 unprotected chair shots on the outside, which did stun him for a moment. Knobbs gets sent into the ring post though, and when the two get in the ring, Goldberg kicks his opponent right in the face. Knobbs is able to use Jimmy Hart's megaphone when the Mouth of the South gets involved, but this of course isn't enough to keep Goldberg down. Knobbs then threatens to shove his stinking armpit into Billy Boy, but he ends up taking a spear, followed by the jackhammer. Goldberg wins another one, and I really should have been counting Goldberg's win streak ever since Starrcade 98. He hasn't lost a match since working with Kevin Nash. Goldberg then makes it clear that he wants Sid's US title, and he challenges the big man to a match at Halloween Havoc. The pay-per-view may be 5 weeks away, but Sid's next. The commentators announced that even though Chris Benoit won the TV title last week, he's still getting his world title shot tonight on Nitro. All that bitching I done last week may have been for nothing, but in my defense, it's not like anyone made it clear what was going on when Rick Steiner came out and offered Benoit a TV title match in lieu of Sting showing up. It's a legit guessing game these days in WCW. Ric Flair comes to the ring for an interview and he once again says he's free and he's happy that the winds of change are blowing through WCW. Careful what you wish for, Rick. And after what happened last week, Ric Flair wants to face Sting tonight on Nitro. Chris Benoit shows up holding his match contract, and while he understands Flair has some unfinished business with the World Heavyweight Champion, the Nature Boy won't be getting a match against Sting tonight. Chris Benoit finally has an opportunity to win the world belt tonight on Nitro, so Slick Rick's gonna have to wait it out. The Sting vs Chris Benoit match is up next on Nitro. Raw opens up with a Vince McMahon promo. McMahon shows off the WWF Championship belt before putting it over his shoulder. I bet he's enjoying this. And Vince makes it clear that what happened on SmackDown was all about kicking Triple H's ass. It wasn't about winning the championship. Vince McMahon is not allowed to get involved in day-to-day business activities in the WWF, and so McMahon relinquishes the belt, and the winner of the six-pack challenge at Unforgiven is going to become the new champion. Stone Cold Steve Austin shows up, the man who pretty much handed Vince the championship on SmackDown, and Austin says this place hasn't been the same without Mr. McMahon, even though he is a silly bastard. Because McMahon's given up the WWF belt, that means there's only 5 people currently entered in the six-pack challenge, so Austin wants put in the Unforgiven main event, and McMahon says he can't do that because, again, he can't interfere in WWF business. Triple H then appears and Helmsley says Vince and Austin stole his belt like two thieves in the night. Hunter has every right to be in that six-pack challenge, and if Vince doesn't put him in the match, then one of his family members are going to leave Raw tonight on a stretcher. Shane McMahon hears this, he comes out to challenge Triple H and Chyna to a tag team match against himself and Vince tonight on Raw, and Austin thinks this is all too much. Vince McMahon needs to grow a pair, he needs to sort this mess out and take control of his company once again. When McMahon reminds Austin about the contract they signed back at Fully Loaded, Stone Cold says Vince should have looked at the fine print because there's one person who can reinstate McMahon as top dog of WWF, and that's Stone Cold Steve Austin. If Austin reinstates McMahon right now, then Stone Cold wants a shot at the WWF title. Vince considers himself reinstated and he says he'll give Stone Cold what he wants, but his title opportunity won't happen at Unforgiven. Instead, Triple H is going to get exactly what he wants because there's 5 other guys who want to destroy the game in the Unforgiven main event. Steve Austin, meanwhile, is going to serve as the special guest ring enforcer for the six-pack challenge, and Stone Cold's going to face the winner of that match on an unspecified date. I don't know, guys. After the whole greater power thing, I'm surprised anyone would trust Vince McMahon ever again, but there you go. We'll crown a new WWF champion this week at Unforgiven. So Chris Benoit finally gets his WCW title shot, and it doesn't start well for the Crippler at all. He's forced to the outside on 3 separate occasions, and the Stinger's making it look easy. Benoit gets frustrated, and he's finally able to bring Sting down for a bridging inverted Indian deathlock. And after softening up the leg and knee a little, Benoit puts his opponent in the Tree of Woe for a dropkick. He wants to do this one more time, but he misses his target. Sting then utilizes the ring post to keep Chris at a disadvantage. He delivers an inverted atomic drop back inside the ropes, but he then botches a powerbomb attempt pretty badly. There was no recovering from that one. Sting makes up for this though with a chin lock, the sign of a real world champion, and Sting's able to stop Benoit from making a comeback with a knee to the midsection. The crowd are still cheering for Sting, by the way, and this heel turn just isn't working out, is it? Sting performs a front suplex before applying chinlock number 2. Chris fights out, but he misses a dropkick. Sting keeps Benoit on the mat before going upstairs, but the champ misses a top rope splash and a Stinger splash, so Benoit is now in with a chance. Sting takes a clothesline and Chris signals for the headbutt. The move connects, but somehow Sting kicks out. So Chris delivers a few suplexes before locking in the Crippler crossface, but Sting's way too close to the ropes. The referee takes a bump when Sting counters a sleeper, and Chris has the match won after a pile driver, but there's no one to count the pinfall. Chris then performs a German suplex and Lex Luger runs in to hit the challenger with his baseball bat. Sting wins via pinfall as Ric Flair runs down to get a piece of Luger. DDP then makes an appearance to hit a diamond cutter on Flair, and it all ends with Hulk Hogan running down to save Flair and Benoit. So Chris's shot at the world belt and the opportunity to push young talent gets flushed down the toilet, and the end result is very typical. Loads of run-ins from superstars of the past. A decent match here though nonetheless. The ending was terrible but also very expected. Shivani says JJ Dillon's trying to sign a DDP versus Flair match for tonight's main event, and yes, we will see that bout a little later on. The Rock wishes a happy birthday to this little lady right here, and he also stops himself from embarrassing her with his signature catchphrases. What a nice guy. The Undertaker, meanwhile, sends Mitty into the boiler room to attack Mick Foley, and when that doesn't work out, the Undertaker sends in Big Show and Viscera 2 to get in on the action. The Rock had to save Mick during a commercial break, and Rock then left Mankind hanging when Foley went for a high five. The referees are still on strike too, by the way, so we'll have a bunch of scab referees officiating the matches tonight on Raw.
Oh, big bratwurst.
Next we've got Chris Jericho versus Billy Gunn. On Nitro, Berlin takes on Scott Armstrong. Not a lot to say about this one on Nitro unfortunately, just the obvious stuff about how this match booking provides us with key insight into what the higher ups think of Alex Wright and this new Berlin character. When you drag Scott Armstrong out for a Nitro match, you know exactly what's going to happen, and it doesn't matter if the match is good or bad. Your position in the company as Scott's opponent stays the exact same. I do wonder if Alex regrets cutting his hair and starting this whole new gimmick though. I think Saturday Night Fever and the whole Das Wunderkind thing still would have worked just fine in WCW during this time period. Anyway, Alex's unnamed bodyguard helps him out once again, and Scott gets pinned after taking a neckbreaker. A post-match chinlock gets stopped by Brad Armstrong. Yeah, Berlin doesn't do post-match beatdowns, he delivers post-match chinlocks. So it looks like a Berlin versus Armstrong brothers feud could very well be on the cards. Can't say I care too much. Jericho thought he was hot shit until Billy Gunn pulled off a back suplex. Chris then took a press slam, he slid out of the ring, and Curtis Hughes provides a brief distraction for Y2J. Chris performs a springboard dropkick, he then takes a suplex on the outside. Mr. Hughes puts Billy Boy down with a clothesline, but Badass stays in control with a neckbreaker and a power slam to Chris Jericho. After delivering a jackhammer, Billy signals for the Famouser, but Curtis Hughes pulls him out of the ring while referee Tom Pritchard's busy with Jericho. Billy takes a DDT on the floor, Chris then applies the walls of Jericho back inside the ring, and Billy's knocked out cold. Jericho defeats Badass Billy Gunn on Raw's War. We have got 5 back-to-back promos to get through on Raw next, while over on Nitro we've got 2 promos. Those are from the ICP and Diamond Dallas Page. If you think 5 promos back-to-back are bad, just wait until Nitro next month. First of all, Rock and Mankind addressed The Undertaker and Big Show. The Rock and Saw Connection explained that they want a shot at the Tag Team Championships while putting a Rock t-shirt over Michael Cole's head. And Rock's a bit surprised that The Undertaker thinks the Great One talks too much trash. The Rock knows he talks too much trash, and as a matter of fact, he talks trash in his sleep.
Rudy Pook, India. Lay the smack it down on the
After laying out the challenge, Mick tells Michael Cole that the Rock and Saw Connection have a strictly platonic relationship, and Cole doesn't know what to make of this statement. The Undertaker and Big Show then get interviewed, and Taker says the Rock's writing checks that his ass can't cash. The Unholy Alliance will defend their tag team titles tonight on Raw, but it's going to be a Dark Side Rules match. What a Dark Side Rules match is, we have no idea, but you can guarantee it's a way to keep Undertaker out of the ring. We won't be seeing Undertaker on Raw for a very long time after tonight's episode. Women's champion Ivory comes down to the ring to complain about the rodents and cockroaches she's come across in Houston. And speaking of cockroaches, Luna Vachon's challenged Ivory to a women's championship match at Unforgiven. Before we get to the pay-per-view though, Ivory wants to challenge anyone in the audience to come in for a non-title match. She wants this, what she calls a Latina cowgirl, to come into the ring, but it's Luna Vachon. The bell rings, and within no time at all, Luna defeats Ivory with a sit-down powerbomb followed by a DDT. So Luna has a pinfall victory over the women's champion. Michael Cole then interviews D'Lo about his upcoming European title shot at Unforgiven, and D'Lo says his match at the pay-per-view isn't about the belt, it's about his past and current relationship with Mark Henry. All D'Lo wanted to do was help Mark get in better shape for his own good, but Mark stabbed D'Lo in the back. D'Lo really should have been careful about what he was saying though, because Mark interrupts his interview with a chair shot to the back, and Mark also drops one of those barrel props over his former best friend. The European champ then leaves the arena, but D'Lo gives chase. We'll come back to these two a little later on. Vince and Shane McMahon are getting prepared for their main event match tonight, and Shane says this is all about revenge. Vince reminds his son that he's not at 100%, but he'll give everything he's got against Triple H in China. Finally, Tess says Jeff Jarrett went way too far last week when he put his hands on Stephanie. So tonight, Big Andy Pandy wants a street fight against Double J. Jeff shows up. He says he'll only accept a tag team match featuring Tess and Stephanie taking on Double J and Deborah, and Stephanie agrees to the match. Look at fucking Brenda Big Balls here. Tess didn't want Stephanie to get involved, but Little Miss McMahon's going to have her first ever match tonight on Raw. Whew, that was a lot of promos. Over on Nitro, we see the ICP and Vampiro arriving to the arena earlier today, and Violent J says Shaggy Tudo passed to fly around the ring tonight. He then says it should have been him getting a cruiserweight title shot tonight, but Vampiro reminds Jay that he's not a cruiserweight. All this advice Mr. Two Dope's receiving seems to go in one ear and out the other. He says he's a juggalo and that's all that matters. DDP says he's done more for pro wrestling than Pete Rose did for baseball. This gets around the boos and DDP tells these people to shut up. The only thing more pathetic than these fans is Nature Boy Ric Flair. Rick's past his prime and Flair wouldn't listen to the advice Sting and Lex Luger gave him last week. Rick is simply not the man anymore. And tonight DDP's gonna take Ric Flair DDP's gonna take Ric Flair to Bangtown. Oh dear. The Dudley Boys take on the New Brood next on Raw, while over on Nitro, it's Blitzkrieg versus Evan Courageous. The Acolytes come out to watch the Raw tag team match. Remember, Farouk and Bradshaw face the Dudleys at Unforgiven. Bradshaw says on commentary that the Acolytes have 3 commandments of their own. Thou shalt not drink our beer, thou shalt not mess with our rats. And Bradshaw says the Public Enemy should have told the Dudleys this one. It's thou shalt not cut a promo on the Acolytes. Stevie Richards shows up dressed up as a Dudley boy, and he proved to be quite useful when he stopped Gangrel from launching an attack. Jeff Hardy delivered a swanton bomb to Devon, but it didn't end the match. Instead, Jeff jumped to the outside where he ended up taking a powerbomb from Bubba Ray. Matt Hardy gets pinned after taking a Dudley death drop, and the Acolytes get in the ring to brawl with the winners. Poor Stevie Richards takes a Dominator. The fight goes all the way through the audience, and the Hardy Boys join in on the fight too, just before Raw takes a commercial break. So Evan Courageous versus Blitzkrieg, simply, was booked to give Sid Vicious a few more victims, meaning you kinda feel like an idiot for investing your time into the match. There's still a clean finish, but the Sid promo after the bout is longer than the match itself. Evan's aerial offense was much more effective than Blitzkrieg's efforts, and Courageous actually wrestled a better match here. Unfortunately, we only saw the impact of Evan's top rope move that ended the match because the cameras were focused on Big Sid. Blitzkrieg also kicked out at 2, but the referee said otherwise. Sid wrecks everybody before accepting the match at Halloween Havoc against Goldberg, but Billy Boy's not allowed to come within 10 feet of Sid before the pay-per-view. If Goldberg lays a finger on Sid, then the match is off, though if Goldberg complies, then he can be another number on Sid's march to the new millennium. Evan Courageous takes another powerbomb after the promo, and I suspect we'll be seeing a lot more of this in the run-up to Halloween Havoc. Double J and Deborah take on Tess and Stephanie next on Raw. On Nitro, we've got a rematch from last week, Saturn versus Eddie Guerrero. Double J attacked the WWF's makeup lady Janet before coming out for his match, and Deborah didn't look too amused. Someone who does look amused though is Stephanie McMahon, who stands on the apron for this entire match while wearing her WWF jobber shirt. To be fair, Deborah doesn't tag in either throughout this whole match. Double J takes a big boot and a sidewalk slam. He manages to get a foot up when Tess jumps at him from the top rope. This spot always looks dumb. Double J then tries to tag in Deborah, but she's too afraid to step inside the ropes. So Jeff carries on and he gets destroyed with Tess' pump handle power slam followed by an elbow drop. Stephanie then comes in to make the cover and take all the glory. Tess and Stephanie win this tag team match, and Double J blames it all on Deborah. I mean, let's be honest, she was a terrible tag team partner. Jeff decides to put Deborah in the figure 4. He's completely lost his mind. He screams at Deborah that this is a man's world, and the crowd chant asshole so loudly that the production guys decide to turn off Jeff's music. They didn't want to miss this opportunity. It looks like I could finally be getting my wish on Nitro, as things seem a bit tense between the Filthy Animals and the Revolution. Both teams jump on the apron when Saturn and Eddie come to a stalemate, and it looks like both factions are on edge. Before we go to commercial break, Saturn applies a chin lock. When we come back, the chin lock's still applied, so the fans in attendance were treated well here. Eddie counters a press slam with an arm drag. He follows this up with a springboard DDT. He stays on his opponent with a springboard Hurricane Rana. Saturn's had enough though, and he fires back with a gargoyle suplex. After delivering an elbow drop, Perry goes for the DVD, but Eddie counters with a roll-up. Saturn then dodges the frog splash. Perry ends up on the outside, and he doesn't take too kindly to Conan putting him back in the ring. So Saturn fights with the Filthy Animals, and this allows Shane Douglas to hit Eddie Guerrero from behind with a chain wrapped around his fist. Perry Saturn is not happy with this, but he ends up covering Eddie for the win. Dean Malenko and Shane Douglas try to tell Saturn that this was the right thing to do, but Perry doesn't seem too convinced. The Dark Side Rules match takes place next on Raw. On Nitro, we've got a Hulk Hogan promo. Have you noticed that all recent Hulk Hogan promos on Nitro have this exact same camera angle? I only point this out because he's the only one who has the cameraman right in the ring with him during his promos, and they're always shot the exact same way. Hogan isn't going to cry about last week because there's no place in wrestling for crybabies. The Hulkster's going to train, say a prayer, and kick Sting's ass at Halloween Havoc, and that's the bottom line. Gimmick infringement, brother. Hogan's operated on a 3-strike rule when it comes to Lex Luger. He took Hogan out with a bat at Fall Brawl. He smashed Bret's face in last week on Nitro, and tonight he tried to get at Ric Flair. So Hogan's had a word with the WCW booking committee, and next week he's going to team up with Bret Hart and Ric Flair to take on Sting, Lex Luger, and DDP. Hulk never thought he and Bret had anything in common. He never thought he'd team up with Ric Flair, but it happens next week in Atlanta, brothers, so what you gonna do? Right, the commentators have no idea how this Dark Side tag team match is going to work, but The Rock predicts it will include Viscera and Mideon. He says Mideon has Mickey Mouse tattoos just like The Undertaker, while Viscera looks like Fat Albert. Neither of these jabronis impressed the Great One. Before coming to the ring, we see Undertaker talking to his little brother Kane, so we assume the Big Red Machine must be taking part in this match. Show and Taker make their way down to the ring, and as predicted, Undertaker won't be competing tonight. He sits at the commentary table while Mideon and Viscera end up walking down seconds later. So it's a 3-on-2 match that begins with Mideon taking Mankind's corner knee strike. Show tries to help Mideon out a little on the outside by launching Foley onto the floor, but back in the ring, Mick pulls off his double arm DDT before tagging Rock in. Rock lays the smackdown on both Mideon and Viscera before putting the big man down with a rock bottom. Show then runs in while Mankind and Mideon fight on the outside, and Show takes a low blow, though Viscera's right there to take Rock out with a clothesline. Kane's pyro goes off and The Undertaker says, "What do we have here?" And this did make me laugh, even though it wasn't all that funny. The Big Red Machine goes to the top rope and he attacks Big Show. Kane has no interest in helping out his big brother. Show gets sent over the top rope, Kane heads back up the ramp, Rock delivers a rock bottom and people's elbow to Mideon, and that means The Rock and Saw Connection are once again WWF Tag Team Champions. The Undertaker isn't happy. He isn't happy at all. And once the competitors get backstage, he orders Mideon, Viscera and Big Show to find Kane post-haste. The Undertaker wants his brother's heart in his hand before the end of the night. Mariana, with a pretty terrible makeup job, is still accusing Chaz of beating her up. She says she tried to apologise to Chaz repeatedly and no woman deserves what she's going through. Chaz shows up and he wonders why his ex-girlfriend continues to tell lies about him, but the cops show up and Chaz ends up getting taken away. Chaz says he just wants to wrestle, but he won't be wrestling tonight on Raw. We step into the dojo next when Steve Blackman beats the hell out of Sean Stasiak. On Nitro, it's Shaggy 2 Dope versus Lenny Lane. That bastard Val Venus shows up after the competitors make their entrances and he's holding Steve's weapon bag. He sets it down while joining the commentary table and look at Shawn Stasiak. Who does he think he is? Steve's already had enough and he kicks Stasiak in the face. He then pulls off his sweet ass leg sweep and we see the spine shattering backbreaker. Steve allows Shawn to put him on the mat, but he doesn't permit a splash. He gets himself up, Stasiak goes down after the mudvug kick, and Steve then goes out to retrieve his weapon bag. Venus allows Blackman to take his personal property back. He opens the bag and he pulls out a toy that Venus probably used just 2 minutes before coming out to ringside on himself. Steve's shocked by this absolute filth and he almost turns into Shane Blackman, but Stasiak ends up pinning our hero and Steve's beside himself. He beats the crap out of Stasiak while Venus heads back up the ramp, but don't worry folks, Blackman will get a chance at redemption at Unforgiven. That toy's going to end up getting shoved right back up Val Venus's asshole. The Lodi superfan once again got inside the ring on Nitro, but this time he was punched in the face by his idol. Yeah, Lodi backwards. They say you should never meet your heroes, and this is exactly why. They might assault you. The guy then hams it up way too much when getting arrested, and it's not believable at all. Then he jumps into Mickey J's arms and the referee pulls off a sick slam, and when the Cruiserweight champ goes to Lodi for some comfort, Shaggy 2-Dope delivers a dropkick. Lenny Lane falls victim to an Emerald Flosion, though he misses a top rope leg drop. A sit-out gut-wrench powerbomb from Lenny Lane almost ends in disaster, but 2-Dope escapes unhurt and he answers with a bulldog. Shaggy 2-Dope's been studying the greats it seems as he pulls off a Lager bomb that unfortunately only gets him a 2 count. Lodi then pulls Shaggy from the apron, and the match ends when the challenger attacks Lodi. The West Hollywood Blonde falls into Vampiro and Violent J, and this allows Lenny Lane to roll up Shaggy 2-Dope. On Nitro, we've got a Rick Steiner promo. On Raw, The Undertaker calls out his little brother Kane. So The Undertaker isn't happy with Kane's insubordination earlier on. He thinks he's given his brother enough opportunities to show the Phenom some respect, and all Kane's done is prove how weak he is. It ends tonight. The Undertaker wants his brother to come down to take this ass whooping like a man. So here comes Kane, who looks happy to accept this challenge. I mean, he is wearing a mask, but I'm sure he's delighted. Undertaker says he's gonna do what he should have done a long time ago. Kane then notices the dead man's minions heading to ringside. Taker dumps his brother over the top rope and Viscera dumps gasoline all over the big red machine. Looks like none of these guys know how to use a lighter, even though Big Show used to smoke 20 a day. So Mankind runs down to save Kane and The Rock follows close behind. The Rock and Sock Connection use baseball bats to keep The Undertaker and his friends at bay, and it all ends with Rock, Mankind and Kane standing in the ring while the heels head back up the ramp. That's twice the Rock and Sock Connection got the better of The Undertaker tonight. On Nitro, you might be thinking this is another "you want some, come get some" promo from Rick Steiner, but no. Rick says he fears no man because he is the man. There's no man who can outfight Rick, but Rick does have respect for 2 other men. Sid Vicious because he's gonna take Goldberg's head off, and the other is this man right here. Scotty Steiner's returned to WCW, and that's quite the shirt he's wearing, right? Scott says the genetic freak is back. He's been recently trying to beat Will Chamberlain's record of laying down 20,000 women, so if anyone in the arena wants to help Scott, they can meet him out back. Brian Knobbs was first in line. Scott says not too long ago he was the leader of the NWO, but he switched on Nitro a few weeks ago to see Hulk Hogan wearing red and yellow. Hogan forgot the NWO motto, you don't leave the New World Order until the NWO says so. I mean, the NWO's dead, buddy, but okay. Scott says Hulk can take all the vitamins he wants, he can pray to whatever god he wants. Nobody leaves the NWO without paying the price, and Steiner's coming after Hogan. I mean, if Scott wants to beat up everyone who left the NWO, then he's got quite a few guys he needs to take care of. But a logical promo aside, it is good to see Scott Steiner back on Nitro. The Big Boss Man takes on Hardcore Holly next on Raw. On Nitro, Chris Kanyon takes on Booker T. This is the 4th time Kanyon and Booker T have wrestled on Nitro without any kind of storyline, so I guess the company just put them together for the sake of a decent match. Kanyon mocks DDP after a shoulder block, but Booker comes back with a dropkick. Kanyon goes to the outside where he has a brief run-in with Stevie Ray, and this makes me wonder why Kanyon didn't come out with Bam Bam Bigelow. Our boy needs backup. Flying forearm from Booker T, hook kick from Booker T. On the outside, Kanyon throws his opponent into the guardrail and Chris spits water all over Booker's face. Booker gets suplexed back in the ring before getting set up on the top rope for a famouser, and even though Chris delivers the move, Booker still kicks out at 2. Booker T delivers the bookend, the Harlem sidekick, the axe kick, and a missile dropkick to end the match. Absolute destruction from the future 5-time WCW World Heavyweight Champion. Over on Raw, we see footage of Al Snow laying his little dog to rest. Well, what's left of his little dog. Pepper's now in doggy heaven and Snow vows to get revenge for what Bossman did to him. But the big Bossman stopped by later on to take a piss on Pepper's grave because that's the kind of guy he is. Hardcore Holly says Bossman's a real tough guy picking on a poor innocent dog, but now he's got a chance to prove how tough he is by having a hardcore match with Bastard Bob. Bossman always talks about hard times, but from what Holly saw in the back earlier on, Bossman would have trouble giving anyone a hard time, if you know what I mean. So that confirms it. Hardcore Holly's a dickie watcher. Don't use a public restroom anywhere near this man. The match immediately goes to the outside where Bob takes a chair shot across the back, and then the moment you all remember.
Boy, this is hardcore. Just
For prosperity, let's see that one again.
boy, this is hardcore. Just
And one more time.
boy, this is hardcore. Just good God.
A piece of the sugar glass legitimately stuck under Bossman's eyelid, and it would take a week or two before his eye completely healed up. Dude could have easily lost his vision right here. We see the Bossman slam just before Al Snow appears on the Titantron. He demonstrates how dangerous the Rottweilers are, who are gonna be part of the Kennel from Hell match at Unforgiven. And yeah, they're not very dangerous, are they? I'd say they look pretty playful. Bossman handcuffs Holly to the ropes, but Crash Holly saves his cousin by hitting Bubba with what looks like a giant wrench. Holly wins the match while still handcuffed to the ring ropes, and Bossman just accepts that he got beat because his eyes totally fucked. I don't blame him at all. Remember earlier on when D'Lo drove off to find Mark Henry? Well, Mark went to a strip club and D'Lo completely killed the mood by attacking the big man. That poor girl was just about to make $2 whole. D'Lo breaks a pool cue over Mark's back before running off. A very elaborate setup here for very little physicality. Back at the arena, Double J tried to attack Chyna while she walked alongside Triple H. Hunter couldn't get at Jarrett and officials quickly broke the fight up. These two are going to meet at Unforgiven this week though, and Chyna could make history if she beats Double J at the pay-per-view. The Raw main event features Triple H and Chyna taking on Vince and Shane McMahon. On Nitro, we've got Ric Flair versus Diamond Dallas Page. Slick Rick attacks DDP while Page was making his entrance, and we get a long fight beside the entrance stage and through the crowd. DDP cannot get started at all, and the Nature Boy seems to be in top form tonight. Remember, this is his first match in around 2 months. Page continues to get demolished at the ringside area, while inside the ropes, Rick begins styling and profiling. Say what you want about Ric Flair, but the fans still absolutely love the guy during this era. Page gets in some offense with a swinging neckbreaker. He delivers an elbow drop south of the border. He tries to soften up Flair with a few strikes in the corner, and he gets vicious by standing on Rick's jaw. Flair falls victim to the real people's elbow before Dallas applies a main event chinlock. We then go back to the corner where Rick gets floored after a few right hands. The Nature Boy gets back up though, and after the two go toe to toe, it's DDP who hits the mat following a hard chop. DDP takes another chop before Rick performs a low blow, and that's where our match ends, folks. Rick applies a figure 4, but here comes Sting to break it up. The referee doesn't call for the bell, seeing as Flair manages to put Sting in a figure 4, but Robinson has no choice when Lex Luger shows up to hit Flair with his baseball bat. There's few things I regret about reliving the war, but I do wish I kept a main event interference tally for both shows. Would have been interesting to see an actual number. Hulk Hogan shows up, but Sting hits him on his injured knee, causing the Hulkster to crumble to the mat. The Stinger hits Hogan a few more times before leaving the ring, and Nitro fades out with Ric Flair tending to Hulk. The commentators talked a lot about the 6-man tag during this bout, so the match was really to promote next week's Nitro main event in Atlanta. Over on Raw, Triple H says he'll prove to the world that he is the game.
That I am the game!
He says he'll be WWF champion once again after going through 5 guys at Unforgiven, the dirty dog, and there's nothing anyone can do about it, including Vince McMahon and Stone Cold Steve Austin. If Austin sticks his nose in Triple H's business, then the game's gonna cripple Stone Cold once again. Shane McMahon makes his entrance, but Vince is nowhere to be found. Someone parked a forklift right outside Vince's dressing room door, which does beg the question, how did Shane get out? Well, maybe it was Shane who locked his dad in the dressing room, because he doesn't seem too surprised when Tess comes out to serve as his new tag team partner. Shane takes Chyna out, and what in the name of God's going on here? Bit of a communication issue, I guess, but it looked really bad. Tess fights with Triple H on the outside while Shane pulls off a suplex back inside the ropes. He then goes for a Bronco Buster, but he gets his wee boy wonder smashed when Chyna gets a boot up. The game tags in, Helmsley hammers away at Shano in the corner, and Hunter spits on Test, which in turn lets Chyna get in a cheap shot. Hunter performs the Hardy Race knee before Chyna comes in for a sleeper. Hunter's able to hit a low blow while the referee's distracted. And this team of Shane and Test aren't doing too well, are they? Shane breaks the sleeper with a back suplex. Test and Triple H tag in. Test shows a lot of fire with a few clotheslines, followed by his gut-wrench powerbomb, and Test then beats the hell out of Triple H in the corner. It was probably at this very moment when Hunter thought, yeah, I'm gonna steal your girl, you big bastard. Shane must be feeling extra botchy tonight as he nearly misses a Bronco Buster. Triple H's nose must have got in the way. Hunter and Shane go down after a double clothesline, and then Jeff Jarrett attacks Test. Chyna goes out to get her hands on Double J, and the two end up heading back up the ramp. So Triple H is all alone, and he's also in a lot of trouble as Test comes back in. The game takes a big boot before Test heads upstairs. Test misses his elbow drop though, and Shane has to come in to save his partner from getting pinned. This leads to Triple H hitting a low blow on the Boy Wonder, and when Dr. Tom gives Hunter a hard time, he ends up getting punched in the face. Triple H then decides to just completely wreck his opponents by hitting both men with pedigrees. Helmsley then goes to the outside, he grabs a steel chair. The beating continues as Pritchard calls for the bell, but Triple H won't stop. It's a very dominant display here from the game when you remember his partner also left him high and dry, and the beating only stops when Hunter decides he's had enough fun. Helmsley heads back up the ramp looking very pleased with his handiwork, but just before Raw fades out, Vince McMahon shows up to hit Helmsley on the head with a steel chair. The shot looked a bit weak considering the damage Hunter just caused in the ring, and Raw ends with Hunter getting slapped around by the chairman. This story will continue on SmackDown, so make sure you visit the channel this Sunday. Nitro wins Reliving the War this week. I know there's a lot of you guys who think I'm biased towards WWF the same way you thought I was biased towards WCW during practically all of 1996. But from an in-ring perspective, WCW cleaned the floor with WWF this week, and I don't think anyone can argue that. Eddie vs Saturn, the Cruiserweight tag opener, Kenyon vs Booker, Benoit vs Sting. These were all decent to good matches, whereas the WWF felt really bloated this week with tons of back-to-back promos, many of which weren't all that interesting, and practically every Raw match was mediocre at best. Even the main event was pretty sloppy. So Nitro's my pick this week, meaning Nitro's now on 74 points, unbelievable. Raw's got 108 points and we've got 20 ties on the board. In the TV ratings, Raw jumped up to a 6.1, Nitro dipped to a 3.1. Reliving the War SmackDown returns this Sunday, and Vince McMahon makes Triple H's life a living hell. Hunter's got a rough night ahead of him as he faces every single wrestler involved in the six-pack challenge in individual matches, and if Triple H can't beat 3 of his 5 opponents, then he's out of the Unforgiven main event. A legendary Attitude Era tag team also reunites on SmackDown. A company legend decides to leave when he refuses to take orders from Mr. McMahon, and we'll also see Ken Shamrock's final match as he gets ready to leave WWF. So this Sunday for Reliving the War SmackDown, on Tuesday we'll check out Unforgiven, and then Reliving the War episode 203 will be available for viewing next Thursday as normal. All these videos will be available for early viewing on Patreon as normal, so if you want to see SmackDown and Unforgiven right now, then head over to the Wrestling Bios Patreon page. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and please take care.